Hi guys, Gary here with Gary Clayton Photography and welcome to my YouTube channel. Now today we're going to talk about some underwater equipment that I use that's been an issue and it's been a problem, and if it had been a problem for me, it's probably been a problem for others too. I've resolved this problem and I want to share it with you today. So first of all, the issue I had, and I've had this issue for several years actually, is triggering or firing my underwater strobes. Now generally speaking, underwater strobes are triggered or fired essentially 2 or 3 different ways. An electronic cable, such as cables used with, say, Icolite housings that sends electronic signal directly to the strobe to trigger and fire the strobe. Optical fiber cables that send a beam of light, if you will, along an optical fiber cable from the internal flash of the camera to the strobe. And thirdly, used sometimes is simply a slave mode, and that's a sensor on the strobe that reacts to the flash of the camera itself and fires, or it reacts to light from another strobe that creates it to fire. Well, I'd always had a problem with activating or triggering my strobe using an optical fiber cable, and my strobes that I had were designed to do that. So it had always been an issue. I'd sent away, I purchased supposedly the right underwater optical fiber cable for my strobes, but I could not get them to work in any kind of reliable fashion. Sometimes they would, but not often. Out of maybe 10 shutter actuations, possibly once those strobes would fire from that store-bought, supposedly correct optical fiber cable for the strobes I was using. So this had gone on for a long time, and it had got to the point where I simply disconnected the strobe, and what I did was I used my strobe as a slave strobe, and I would mount it just like so. So this is where the strobe would go. It has a sensor underneath, and whenever I depressed the shutter on the camera, the flash would fire and simply trigger the strobe. But I could not move the strobe. It had to be really, really close to the flash port. It wasn't really working for me. Sure, I could create light, but you know what? The light went straight out, picked up a lot of backscatter, which came straight back to the lens. And quite often the images were useless, and it just did not work. But for some reason, I could not get my, wow, that's a little creaky, isn't it? I could not get my optical fiber cable to trigger the strobe. I was speaking about 4 or 5 months ago. I was speaking with another underwater photographer in Toronto, and he said to me, he said, listen, one of the issues with optical fiber cables, especially with certain strobes and so on, is the actual diameter of the optical fiber cable. He says the optical fiber cable you have is probably super thin, probably 0.25 of a millimeter. I said, you're right, it is. He says, why don't you consider something wider, something bigger? This started making me think about this a lot. So what I did was I went on eBay and I picked up this optical fiber cable. Now, I am going to post, first of all, for anybody that's interested, in the description of this video, I am going to post a link to this particular product because it's great and it's cheap. So what I bought was, I bought a 3mm optical fiber cable. So this is essentially 12 times the diameter of what I was using. So it's an optical fiber cable. It has a very thin rubber or plastic, probably plastic coating around it. It is 3mm. You could get it in 2mm, 3mm, 4mm, 5mm. I opted for the 3mm, not because I knew 3mm was the right size, simply because I knew I wanted bigger than what I was using, and I wanted to try this as an experiment. It's very inexpensive. It comes in a 3 meter, around 10-foot roll, is the shortest amount you can buy, which is way more than I would need. But anyhow, it's like $10 delivered to your door. I thought, you know what, I'm going to give it a try. So I did. I ordered it. About 3 weeks later, it arrived. This is the rig I use for underwater photography. I know it's a little creaky right now. But this is a rig I use for underwater photography. So inside here I have a Canon DSLR camera. I have a Mekong housing. I have an Ultramax 1 strobe, and then of course I have a pair of Archon D11V video lights. You may have seen a video on those video lights, by the way, and if you're interested in seeing that video on those video lights, I'm going to punch up a link right now so you can actually check that out, because that is quite useful. It's quite informative, and these are really good lights for you to look at. But anyhow, going on with our optical fiber cable. So I cut myself a length of this cable. Now, when I first cut it, it didn't work as well as I'd kind of hoped for, although it was working better than I'd had before. This time, you know, out of say 10 shutter actuations, maybe 5 times it would work out of the 10 rather than 1 as it was doing before. So this was an improvement, but still, when you want to get that shot, you want to know that your strobe is going to fire. So I started thinking about this, and I looked at this very closely, this cable, or this optical fiber cable, and I realized, like I'd mentioned just earlier, it did have a rubber or plastic coating around it. Now, I'd been using a pair of side cutters to cut this, and I started thinking, you know what? Maybe when I'm using the side cutters to cut this, I'm actually bending over a little bit, though that protective sheet, protective coating around it, and actually blocking off a little bit of the optical fiber cable. So I took a closer look at this under a magnifying glass, and sure enough, I was. Now, I am really not big into macro photography. However, I did set up my cameras, and I did take a look at this under macro photography of what I was actually doing. So I cut this with a pair of side cutters, just snap, and I took a photograph. And then I cut another piece of cable with an X-Acto knife, a very sharp kind of Stanley knife or X-Acto modeling type knife, very gently, cut through it, nice and flat, and it came out totally different. It came out totally better. So I'm going to post these 2 images right now. The first image is going to be the image of the kind of partially obscured cut with the side cutters, and the second image that I'm going to post right now is of the cable cut with an X-Acto knife. And you can plainly see a huge difference here now, because don't forget, what we're doing in it is transporting light, just like anything else. If we were transporting water through a hose pipe and we restrict that hose pipe, less water is going to come through. The way I was cutting this, it was restricting the optical fiber cable, hence less light. Hey, it was just my theory. Take a look at these images. Again, the first one is cut with side cutters and restricted. The second one is cut with the X-Acto knife and non-restricted. Take a look. Okay, from those 2 images you can plainly see a difference. So I recut a piece of cable, I attached it to my camera. So what we're going to do right now, and you can see it attached to my camera, I'm going to turn on the camera, I'm going to turn on the strobe, I am going to depress the shutter button. Fires. Does it every time. It's perfect. It works great. It's exactly what I needed. Simple. A simple remedy, a simple fix. I did have to make a few little modifications to the connectors, because the connectors were designed for something along the sizes, as I'd said, of about a 0.25 millimeter, and now I'm using 3 millimeter. So I did have to make a little bit of an adjustment, but it was really simple. It took me like 5 minutes. Watch. Fire. Not a problem. Works great. It was a simple solution. Cost me like $10 and maybe a total of 30 minutes of my time to figure this out. I wanted to share this with you. I wanted to share this because this has been a problem I'd had for actually a long time. And I tried different optical fiber cables, and I was having very poor results until I made my own. Fire. Simple. It's great. I hope you like this. I hope it's of some benefit to you. Please like, please share, please comment, subscribe to my channel. I do a lot of different things in photography. Underwater photography, this is just one of them. We do a lot of landscape, we do weddings, portraits, real estate, commercial event, all kinds of stuff. Again, check out the video on these 2 Archon D11V video lights, because they're really good. A simple solution to a possible problem that other guys must be having, because I've had it for a long time. Optical fiber cable off eBay, a $10 solution. It's great. Thank you for watching my channel. Gary here with Gary Clayton Photography. We'll see you next time. Bye bye.